Hey, folks. Hey, a little late, about a minute late. I'm waiting on Kristi. Morning, morning. Hey. Let's see. Looking for Kristi. So, all right, y'all. This is gonna be a really good one this week. My good friend Kristi Brown out of Seattle is gonna be joining me. She is super dope. She is running. She sort of pivoted really brilliantly once COVID kind of started, and she, hey, there we go. Let's see. Hey. See if we can Kristi real quick. Come on now. Hey. Good morning.
We did it.
Awesome. I was a minute. I was a couple minutes. I was a minute late. I've been doing good with being like a minute right before, but having a little technical difficulties. But here we are. Love the lit. Hey. Okay, everybody. So this is what week 9 of Politics of Food is a collaboration between Black food folks, so Clay Williams and Colleen Vincent, and Afropunk. And I think the beginning of the thought around it was really sort of about we were thinking about COVID and what the response was in our industry around it. And in the afternoons, we got the adult folks over at Dine Diaspora who do sort of like a upbeat, sort of fun, chef-led conversation. And the ones I'm doing in the morning have really sort of been about what we should be thinking about, how we look at, how we can interrogate the spaces we exist in food, and what that looks like from a producer, from an activist standpoint. And so they've been super dope so far. I mean, the conversations have been wide ranging, but one of the people who I absolutely had to have on was my good sis, Kristi Brown. She has been my mentor in food and catering, and sort of, you hearing feedback? Or is that me? Am I okay?
I think it's you. I don't know. I haven't been talking. So
Okay. That she's somebody who had always given me the best advice really early on, but also her practice has been thoughtful and community driven and community focused from really the beginning of her practice. So she's somebody who I thought would be interesting to talk about what the practical side of a business that is centered in community looks like from the jump. Like if you ready, you don't have to get ready. If you always think through how you move in the world. Let's see. Feedback is that. Okay. So, Kristi, I would love if you could start with this, sort of talking about your work, talking about like where you're from and what that looks like in terms of like the beginnings of your career and the trajectory.
that's so good. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. This is super good. Just loving this conversation, loving the conversations that I've heard thus far on this live, and really glad to be a part of it. It's interesting that you would ask that because I just came back from Kansas City not too long ago. So originally, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and when I was 15, I moved to Seattle, Washington, and it was just a whole new world. Like it was a whole different situation. God here, I hadn't seen not too many people like from the Asian diaspora and like just different spaces. And so then like going back to Kansas City though, like I went through the market where my grandmother used to take me every Saturday to go get our vegetables for the week. And every stall was from a different country. So it was interesting because I had this storyline in my head that I came to Seattle and discovered this whole new world of people, but really it was in my backyard all along. And I think that I just, I was young. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking about the influence, it was wonderful to walk through the market and see the influences of my cooking, even though I didn't know, like that ancestral connection, and it was so beautiful. And I think that how it informs what I do now is just that we're not limited in our scope of how we can reach. And I think that's that you've heard from other
Yeah.
people that you've spoken with all through these interviews is we're such a vast people and we have so many experiences. And so loving the ability to and the freedom that we have, I think here, particularly in the Northwest, to be able to integrate that into what we do. Because like where you would go, sure, like we have our red line district, no doubt that's where we were sequestered for years. But at the same time, being surrounded by so many other cultures, we were able to share and do different things. I think that a lot of people didn't get to do in other cities. And so I feel like that's always kind of driven my desire. And then we moved around. Like we lived in Renton, we outskirts, you know, and so having just different experiences like that and being around different cultures has definitely informed the reach of who, how, that brown girl cooks, that brown girl catering, and on the things that we're doing has been able to serve so many various communities.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
really the beginning. But it's interesting because we call our cuisine Seattle Soul, and it is the story of me being from Kansas City, moving to Seattle, and having that influence um, show up in my cooking.
Yeah. I always think about your story very much like it must have been like when folks were leaving the South. That's sort of migration story. I feel like everybody sort of comes into every story that I find fascinating or every story I think about of a chef who's working right now is always a story of not just placement, but certainly movement and sort of what that looks like in terms of the way you translate where you're from and what your roots are in your practice. And so I always think about your work as particularly international in scope, just with how many things you're interested in. Um, but also, I think um, there's something in the particularity of the Northwest. And I mean, I feel like the Northwest, but the West Coast in general. I mean, think about Japanese internment. I think there's this marginalized nature to the stories that happen in the Northwest and the way that illustrate those narratives really clearly. And so I guess I'm wondering because I think about the particularity of the Black community in Seattle. My first real taste of it was Wayne Johnson bringing us was for this event called Food is Art. And it was this really interesting way that it highlighted how the Black chefs in Seattle kind of created this kind of hub of like, not influence as much as like, I don't know, collective energy, right? Like it just felt like y'all had this very particular way about how you defined and contextualized community there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Man, that event, I mean, it was funny because I've been looking through pictures. My son and I are opening a restaurant later on this summer, and so got
Hey,
a lot of information, pulling a lot together, and we're looking at our pictures of when you came out to Food is Art and how like we were honored to be there. Like we were honored to be able to have this space where we could come together. We kind of knew each other existed, but that was the first time. Jim Watkins, who is my first Black chef, um, came in and brought us all together. Wayne, like Tracy, like just so many different geniuses, and it was just so amazing to be a part of that because you knew that it was okay for you to be Black and explore the food that you explored. And if it didn't have anything to do with what traditionally would be known as Black food, you were okay and you were safe. And man, that blew my mind. I have to pick on my desk right now of amazing, like extravaganza flavors. and cultures with like mine. Were you hearing me that whole time? Oh, okay.
A little. I got a little.
Okay, but I was saying like the having that experience of having all of these chefs and knowing that we didn't have to have the same flavor palette, that was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, and, and so we were doing what we were doing. Look, I didn't know until you came that this wasn't happening in other parts of the country. Like,
Right.
Chef Amadeus, connected us, and so many other folks he brought to the Northwest coming from Jacksonville. And it was like we were really out there doing something that was amazing. And it was just I don't know how to describe it. I love reading Tony Tip Martin's book and talking about, this coming together and helping us understand who we are in this collective, because not knowing like that anybody existed outside of Patrick Clark, it was a lonely road.
Yeah.
It was a lonely road. And so we came together and we have all these chefs, and it's like, it really breathed life into a movement, I feel like. And I don't know that we started it. I don't kind of claim to fame with that, but knowing that we were really pioneers in that space to bring Black food together and honor the fact that we all have these different experiences,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
That
And
part.
I would say, like, he's a friend. Eduardo out here toting that line
Yeah.
every day, saying we out here, we have a voice, and it doesn't have to look like what you approve of, has been huge.
I mean, that posture change is really the biggest deal of it, right? Because it's so. I think because we talk about just like timeline a lot, right? And it's something about the specificity of think about like somebody like Patrick Clark who is existing in the 80s, 80s into the 90s. He passed away, and in a lot of important ways, it feels like this like almost a furry dream. And you think about people like Joe Randall and like Edna Lewis and Leah Chance, they had a collective in their generation as well that was very much this notion about like trying to find and celebrate who was Black and working in their day. But there always seems to be this like destructive and sort of dangerous gap in between their generation and ours where do we forget that? How do we get so removed from this notion? I think it's important mainly because the momentum that we're feeling is not really, I mean, it's important, but it's almost like we're in danger of having the same historical like amnesia if we don't if we aren't precious about like that recognition. And so I'm thinking about sort of how you've always operated your business. This specificity about community is a big thing, but like when COVID hit, I think a lot of people were pivoting to like the community kitchen model, and what that could look like and how you sort of curate resources in the community to get that done. So I wonder if you could just talk about that process because a lot of folks have been thinking about that and sort of benefited from the process of it in the last 3 months, but it's something you've always done. It's something that also has got to be kind of crystallized and sort of distilled down so we can think about how you want to keep it going, but like folks maybe who are listening who are thinking about how to create something like that in their communities, maybe you could give some insight.
So it's interesting. Maybe what I always say is like Seattle is an interesting place, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we got the virus first, right? We got the virus first. And catering, I always tell people we got hit before anybody did.
Yes.
It was the immediacy of, okay, oh, there's a virus going around. Oh, wow, that's deep. And then it's like, okay, well, hold up. No more than 50 people can gather. Bam, immediately. We suffered like the loss of two major jobs that, again, you're in March. Holiday season ends in mid-December, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go through January kind of floating on your funds from January, from December. You're like, okay, I did it.
Yep.
And then, you know,
And
February.
if you're black, you think you get through February because it's all Black History Month stuff, so you're kind of okay. But you
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
yeah.
right. And then March, you gonna hit, and it's fundraising season. Yay! You know, we gonna make all the money we didn't make, and and then some. We gonna be cooling until the next hit. And that man, March the 4th, I would say, is our first day. And so a lot of y'all, didn't get hit until late March, early April. And so we lost these two major jobs, one of the largest jobs we were gonna had done in a long time. And once that hit, it was over. And so it was just like, okay. And so if you were to see on our walls, we do the little, we have the pads and we write
Mm-hmm.
plans and everything. We write. We get the whole team in here, the kitchen and the office. We sit down, we eat, we huddle, when we talk about what we're gonna do. We come up with all these ideas, and because That Brown Girl Cooks is the second iteration of the business that I had. The first was That Brown Girl Catering, and I closed down in a space where it was a .com crash. I didn't really know what all that was. I just knew that, one, I didn't have access to capital to be able to get the amount of loans that would float me through. We really weren't hit financially during that time because
Mm-hmm.
when you are one of very few Black caterers in a city, you're going to get that, that kind of business pretty consistently, not depending on how the economy is going. So we were in a different place, but this time around we were in a better place. Like, this major catastrophe hit. Okay, we're all right. We can kind of make this work. But it was like, start hearing whispers of people being hungry. And that was like, hold up, wait a minute. You don't know what to do. The world's gonna be all right. But what about our people that
Yeah.
have been hungry, and now they're even
Yeah.
more hungry? What are we gonna do about that? So Melissa Miranda from Musang Restaurant here in Seattle started the community kitchen, and she called us. It was about 5 or 6 of us at first, or 5 of us at first. About 6 people ended up joining in, and we all decided to take a day and make sure that there were people being fed every day,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of income, no matter what. And where would we get the food? We didn't know, but I know we had a ton of food because we had that 400 party gig that you.
Right.
So we had all that food. So it was just like, okay, well, let's just cook it and then we'll just see. And the thing about this interesting, I love food. I love food because it's so freaking magical. I love it. And it's like, I got a girlfriend, Jennifer Johns, out of
Mm-hmm.
and she's fucking amazing. And we was sitting around one day, we was doing some kind of event for the community and feed folks for free. And we was like, we ain't got no money. How we gonna do this? It was like, fish and loaves, dog, fish and loaves. And like,
Mm-hmm.
how did Jesus feed the multitude of people? He made soup. Like,
Right. No.
right? Like,
That's
how
right.
would you ever be able to take this little bitty thing and then like feed a whole bunch of people, right? We was like, okay, let's make soup. And so that's been kind of a theme out inside and outside of what we do, is that, you don't need a lot to affect change.
Yes. Yes.
Not waiting on this lick and this situation, but food is magic. And so we get in there and create these spaces with food that nobody else can do. And so that's what we did. And it was funny, it was like, okay, you got this going on, but at the same time, like, I gotta pay the bill. So we're doing all the applications for the loans and I'm just possessed getting all these applications in.
Mm-hmm.
And looked back, had to pull out the business, and I was like, oh, we've been doing this.
That's right.
I don't think most chefs think ahead that far. Like I think we just are in the moment. And in that moment, it was like, we've been this community discounts that we give organizations that are feeding folks, um, really. And what it ended up happening was donations came through, we got some grants, and that enabled us to continue just to keep feeding people. Then farm season came, and that's been amazing because we got 4 different farms coming through, bringing us whatever, and we just take whatever we can from what we get. And it's such a different situation being Black here in the Northwest versus being in other parts of the country. Our ability to be more resilient because the state is so, prosperous in so many different ways. I think that gives me, I don't think everybody has that here, but I think that gives me the ability to imagine something outside. I got to pay this bill. And I just believe faith that I have connected to this magic will provide a way. And I just have had to do that because I ain't never had a whole bunch to do nothing with. So ain't no sense in trying to wait for a whole bucket of money to be able to do what it is I want to do. I just gotta do it. Like what's the sister's name? Gilma? The sister
Georgia Gilmore.
Georgia Gilmore. Yeah. I was like, hey, that's me. Like that's what we do. Like, and that's just what we do. Like it ain't nothing special or nothing like that. It's just, man, it's been amazing to be a part of that, have these confirmations in what we've written ourselves and in history to know that we don't need nothing to feed our people. We just got to do it. And then if you do that, the resources can manifest themselves and you can continue to be able to do that. And so we're trying to, right now, we're working on how do we then do that as a course of life, just to make it, because I'm sure that if I, put my mind to it, I can affect change on a more, like on a governmental level, get involved in politics. And I think we'll have to be a part of it. But in the meantime, like there has to be this man. That's been the best thing about the collective, is that we really are looking for ways to continue this work through the pandemic and after, because it is not going to stop.
Yes. And so for those y'all who are joining us, we've been talking with Chef Kristi Brown of That Brown Girl Cooks. Something in that is so interesting, and it's something I've really been thinking a lot about. It's this notion of what resources look like, and like how we have to kind of redefine them, not just for the Black community, but just in general. I think this moment has sort of shifted priorities in a way. Just having people have to rethink what they were valuing and what spaces they were valuing most. And so I'm thinking about a large part of what I always think about in terms of your work is intention. The community kitchen model is essentially who has donations, resources to be able to donate for physical, like tangible resources to cook, but then also like the labor part is like keeping your folks engaged. And I think that's been something that's been interesting with restaurants. It's kind of like we kind of got to. I want to be able to keep my employees working through this, but how I have the money to do it. So I would love for you to talk, because we talk about the specificity of Seattle. And specifically Washington State is progressive in the frame of resources. And in this moment, it just feels like we discount, it feels like all the time, but certainly recently, in this moment, people discount the power of local government and like what resources are available to you. Can you talk a little bit, because I know you have some really interesting and really positive relationships with your city, and how like resources have been like sort of disseminated in a really practical way. I guess I'm thinking about what that could look like even outside of progressive cities. Like what research should you be looking at and looking for in terms of possibility?
Yeah, we talked about that. Like we were talking about that with Erica and Shanita, and I, I'm laughing because it's like when I like to travel so much, and so when I'm going and I'm trying to, like, I go out and I'm trying to see like what other folks are missing, because sometimes we get into this bag about what we don't got and what ain't happening.
Yo.
And da da da. And I'm like, while you out here fucking around trying to tell people what's wrong, you know what I'm saying? There's somebody slipping under that goat and getting what they need to get it popping. You better figure it out, And so I think that in this case, like, although I think that Seattle is somewhat amenable, it's people like King Garrett, who started, or not started, but in a collaboration with other folks, Africa Town. And Africa Town is an effort to bring Black folks back into the area that we were redlined for so long, and then they found out about kick, right? Like, so there's all these efforts going forth. And so it's like when I see movements like that, and I know that, you know, it's like, one of the things that really gets under my skin is when Black people, particularly when Black people be trying to start their own thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, even with the community kitchen, it was like, that was Melissa's idea, but it wasn't her thing. It was like, it could be everybody's thing. And I feel like there's so many opportunities inside your city, no matter where you're from, to get on a thing that's already existing and try to see where you can fit into that thing, instead of trying to find something new and stuff like that, because that's going to slow down your momentum. You know what I'm saying? If these people have already laid that groundwork in, you don't need to shine. Go on in there and get your work done. Maybe you'll shine later on.
Yes.
And I feel like that's a lot of the parts that where we be missing out, because it don't matter where you go right now. Folks are moving. Folks want change. Get in there on that change and then make it happen. And so, like, I feel like what's been really beautiful is, you know, with Africa Town, what they did was, in the process of their first project, which is the Liberty Bank building, is historically the first Black-owned credit union out west of the Mississippi. And so what they did was they found out this land was being sold. They got in there before they sold it and was like, yo, before you sell this, you got to make sure that Black folks are represented, they have a part in it, and then that the ultimate goal is that you return ownership to Black folks once we do this process. And so our restaurant will be in the building that they did that work for. Now, getting in there, you know, I had heard whispers and stuff around, and people from the city, because we do a lot of catering for the city and some for the county. And folks were saying, you know, the city's looking at you, you know. And I've always been a poster child for Black women owned business. She was a single parent and she made her way, you know, and so we're going to use her as an example. So, and that's great. Like, at first when I was younger, I hated it because I thought, oh, you token, you this, you that, you know, and stuff like that. And then I was like, hold up, wait a minute. If you get the opportunity, take it. And then, you know, make a way for other folks to come after you to be able to do what you're doing too. And so that's really the stance I took. And I feel like we miss opportunities to get connected in what there's money, there's government, there's money, there's ways. And how that showed up for us is, you know, with our relationship with the Office of Economic Development, we've been able to, you know, really be in a good situation when it comes to the financing for this restaurant. And we were able to get grants and forgivable loans and different things that allowed us to be able to do that, because, you know, Seattle is expensive. You know, this project, and I've said it many times, and in $1.3 million, I don't know what it's like in Louisiana and Atlanta and all the different things, but that just seems exorbitant. Cost to be able to open up a restaurant where we know the margins are not, you know, that great. But, and, you know, we were able to get into this space without having that heavy load because of our relationships over time. And I think that's another thing. It's like, I've been in this game since 93. I graduated from culinary school in 93, you know, and that's a long ass time. And when I was in it in the beginning, I'd be watching these white boys just pass me by. And I was just like, you know, what is that? Why? You know, oh, it's because I'm in catering. Oh, it's because of this. Oh, it's because of that. And I would get discouraged, but I never could stop. I didn't have the luxury of being able to stop. So I just kept, and I feel like this, my sister wife, Omi Tosin, was talking yesterday in our Sunday service about goodwill, good intention. Where's your heart? You know what I'm saying? Why are you doing this work? And I think that that's really super duper important
Say that part.
What is your intention? And around food, again, it's magic. So if your intention is good and you get in there and put that good intention in there, it can't do anything but grow. You know, it can't do anything but grow. And I just think it's really, really important to keep that at the base of what you're doing, because you can get real technical, get all the degrees in the world and loans and all that and stuff, and still fail. So it's got to be something else besides, you know, the money.
That part.
Yeah.
So we're doing pretty good on time, and I appreciate your insights, because it just feels you always make it so simple, like super clear about what, like why y'all doing all this talking, but like what's actually simple is that if you start with reasonable, good intention, it should work itself out in a practical way. I would love for you to talk about your farm school project, because it's something that I've loved what you've been doing over the years, but it seems like a really practical, not pivot, but practical way to sort of focus time right now. This notion about food stores, not just as a chef, but sort of as a person, right? Like we have been discounting the power and the value of food stores. And this farm project you've been doing over the years has been so interesting. I just would love for you to talk about that.
I love it so much. I love it so much because it really was a fluke. I attribute a lot of what happens is through spirit. You know, it was a fluke. I was in the middle of a divorce. It was an ugly divorce. And I was just going through a lot of pain. That connection to family is a lot to me. And we were trying to work through this space, and I just had lost it. I had lost that shine. And I was on a board for an organization called Fields, Oceans, Ranches, Kitchens, Stewards, and Forks. And Forks is an amazing organization where we connected chefs with these entities. And so one of the bigger things that I did with them was I put on a cider, the cheese and cider festival. And it was super cool because I got to actually meet the people that made the cheese and meet the cideries and stuff like that. So that was super duper cool. And once we finished that project, they had a scholarship for the Quillasasket Farm School. And I was like, okay, I'm sure. All right. And they would talk about what it was, but I really didn't understand because my mind was in 5 different places at one time. So sitting there, and they were like, hey, we want you to go. I was like, I don't think I can take off work. Then my son was like, yeah, you can. You need to go somewhere. So I went to the farm school. I called the people. I was so brain dead during that time. Called the people. I was like, I need a ride because I didn't have a car. I was just like, you know, okay, let's go. So I get out there, and Laura Lee and Rick are the owners of the farm, and Chef Karen Jurgensen, she's one of the chefs at Seattle Central Community College and in the culinary program. And they together run this farm school. And so we go out for 4 nights and 5 days. You work the farm, you go, and nothing you cook is more than 50 miles from the farm. So I was, whoa. And I've had experiences like that before, but not for Friday and not for and not when I had to work it. And so I get there and Leia helped heal my soul. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I ain't even never heard anything like this. And I looked at Laura Lee, I was like, have you ever had any Black folks out here? And she sat there and she thought about it. She was like, well, and she was like, this is ridiculous. And the fact that I got to think this long about it says something about it. What can we do? And she literally has made a way for this school to flourish. So we started, let's see, I think this is the third, this year will be the 3rd year that we're doing the farm school. Super pumped because it's a possibility that we're going to have to extend it to two weeks.
Hey.
So many folks and COVID.
Yeah.
So we can't have that many people out at the farm at the same time. So she's cut down the number. So she and Chef Sabrina Tinsley from La Spiga restaurant here in Seattle, who I've known forever. We're working on that farm school right now. And really it is about getting people of color in the culinary industry specifically to have this experience, get out there and farm with folks that look like you and have discussions about what farming is like, and what it can do for your community to be connected to the food in this way. And honestly, there's a ton of things that you learn out there, and you might not be able to do it all. You kind of come back, it feels like a religion. When you come back, you want everybody to compost and water conserve. But what you give from that is that connection to land. And if you allow it, it can flourish into, spaces where you're able to feed your community with farmers. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just, you can't make this shit up. You just gotta do it. You gotta do the work. That's the biggest thing. My sister, she just started her Instagram, and she does things around relationship. And one of the things our dad taught us is a doing thing.
Ooh, that part.
Love is a doing thing. You can't talk about it. You can't, you have to do it. That's all you can do. And so, and then that, will bring its own results. And then you see where the next step lies. So it's cool. I'm excited to be a part of this collective. And they went like, we connected it again, like out of this COVID thing. What can we do? So those guys, some of the past participants got together and they're trying to figure out, what can we do? What can we do? So we get on, I'm like, hey, I know about this farm, Black up here in Washington. I connect with him. Me and Chef Tart go out, visit him, spend a day just touring the farm. I was like, what can we do to help? What do you need? And they're like, oh, we need a greenhouse. We need to build a greenhouse. I was like, okay, how many people you need for that? They're like, oh, maybe like 4 or 5. So get back home, hit up everybody. Yo, anybody want to work the farm? I don't want to work the farm, but if you want to work the farm, let me know.
Yeah.
We get 5 volunteers. They go out, work the farm for a day, help build beds, so them guys could plant their winter crop.
That's right. That's right.
It's just doing it. You just got to do it. You got to stop talking about it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like the posture of movement, right? The posture of like tangible, like this is something physical we can do, something specifically asking a farmer what they need. It also sort of staves off like any kind of depression or like there's a sense sometimes that we be so mired in what you don't have. The moment of like trying to figure out what's going on with your business, how you're gonna pivot or sort of regroup with uncertainty on the government level. All of that is going to be true, but these tangible things, like sometimes people ask about like what they can be doing to connect to Black farmers. I'm like, legit go out. Like, are you like legitimately go? Like, I mean, there's so many organizations that will give you lists, but like in your community, who's at your farmers market. Like, legit, can I come out? Like, exactly. And also, I think sometimes we talk a lot about how government spaces come into communities and want to like parachute in resources to tell you what you need and don't ask. We don't ask either. Like a lot of times we don't ask in communities what farmers, what folks really need in terms of resources. So a lot of your approach, I love, just feels a lot like, where's the actual need? What's the tangible thing folks need? What am I seeing that I can tangibly do? Let's just get it done. Let's just jump in and do it.
And honestly, after we came back from was that the Bahamas? When we were in the Bahamas with Erica.
Yeah, Totola.
And I was shout out Chef Erica Klein. Woo woo.
Yes.
But Erica had us down there, and when I met Chef Kevin, and then we met so many people, but then we left Chef Kevin, and y'all had already met everybody, and it was my first time. And he left, and he was doing good. Like, he was a culinary instructor. He's in South Carolina. He's doing his thing and everything. And then all of a sudden, he goes back to school for Southern Foodways.
Yep.
I was like, what's that? I didn't know anything about it. So watching these other chefs, and their connection to the land.
Yeah.
What is his thing? Is from from black hands to white mouths or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And it's
Yeah.
just like that journey and that conversation that he was having, and I was just watching him do that, and he was just going out and talking to the farmer, and I'm like, duh, you
Yeah.
know, duh. And that BJ, what he's doing,
Yeah. I
you know,
mean, yeah, and I think that's the other part that people. What I love about BJ too is like his when people want to engage with what he's doing, it's kind of like there's it's similar to what Eduardo engages. Like, it's a certain degree of deference you're gonna have to pay to come into spaces and to talk to these people. And so when he's bringing film crews and different programs, whatever, onto those islands, it's not just tourism, right? It's not just coming to sort of see how these people live. It's about really hearing the stories firsthand, and being so specific about how you protect that culture. And that's kind of what it feels like now. I mean, I feel like the way I would love us to talk a little bit about communion and like what your restaurant is going to be, because it's like a particular an idea and a particular conceit of what restaurants could be if you had a particular like a thoughtful intention from the beginning. And so because I've always thought about you as a caterer. I was you like again you like catering shiro. I'm telling y'all, when I was a very young chef and had no idea how to really formulate anything. Like I had my business degree, but the mechanism of catering. Kristi, somebody I didn't even know, like literally had just met. She sent me her whole business plan, like just all of the tools, just like these things you should and shouldn't do. Just so generous to it, resources. But I always thought if you, I mean, you had the hummus company, like all these spaces outside of traditional restaurants that you were able to sort of use and make valuable and fly and on your own terms. That was always a lesson. And so when you talked about the potential of a restaurant, it's been a couple of years now, but the potential of a restaurant, I knew it was gonna have to be something specific. But then to hear you talk about what that model was gonna be, it makes it one of those models that we're gonna be looking at post COVID, but certainly like years from now in terms of not just how you pivoted, but how you thought differently about the conceit. So I just would love for you to just give people a taste of what that's gonna be.
it's exciting. It's interesting and it's exciting. We, I say we. Damon Bomar is my son and business partner, and we've been working on this all of his life. And the thing I love about him so much is that he hears my heart and he takes it and he could modify. And I don't know about you, but that's an amazing feat. Um,
Yes.
and so what happened was like, you know, again in talks, Africa Town doing these surveys, asking folks what did they want to see, how could you imagine a community, and what would it look like, and several people from the community said they wanted food from us. And so that was 3 years ago, when we started. Well, I guess we're almost in the fourth year now.
Yeah.
But you know, talking about that, things take time. I just always want to remind people that shit takes time. Um,
Mm.
so we got into it. It's a partnership with they have a new name now, but it's Capitol Hill House, and they're an organization that does affordable housing around the city. And we got started planning this thing, and we had this idea. You know, it's like, okay, now you get to be a restaurant chef. You don't have no babies
Mm.
no more. You can work at night. You
Right.
come on, let's do it. And so we planned this beautiful restaurant out with an open kitchen and all of this kind of stuff. And then the virus hit, and it was like, okay,
Really.
well, folks ain't gonna be able to sit down. What we gonna do now, right? Okay. So then that, you know, that I think we thrive in spaces where people would falter, you know,
That's
honestly.
right.
And it's like, as soon as some kind of emergency hit, that's where I'm like, okay, let's go. What we got to do? What we got to do? And so we are in still having to kind of be flexible around this concept, but it's a wonderful space, where we're gonna be doing, man, so many different things. Our latest kind of tangent is this connection with the farms,
Mm.
fresh vegetables for sale for folks to be able to buy, having merchandising area where we are able to promote Black owned. Black and brown owned businesses, food businesses, having that space. Because that's the thing. It's like you being flexible. It's like, you know, when everybody got shut down, you know, you just start seeing people come up with these different ideas, you know, and it's been amazing. So having that kind of marketplace feel really worked well with the concept that we're doing. So that's something that we're working on. One of the other concepts that we are doing, which I'm still getting comfortable with saying it out loud, but you're going to eat what I'm going to cook.
I mean, like,
and it's really actually pretty cool because it feeds into this farm to table thing. If I buy a whole pig, you can't have pork chops every day. You
I
can't.
mean,
If I buy a side of a cow, you can't have steak every day. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not how the cow was built. You know, I remember going to a farm, we went to the it was a mobile processing station in Seattle or in the state of Washington. There's only so many places you can have cows, you can have all these animals, but you got to take them to these mobile processing stations to get slaughtered, so that you could take the meat back and do whatever you're gonna want to do with it. So like 80% of the cow is the hamburger, right?
yeah,
So you can't this ideal of I'm gonna go and sit down and get what I want, we're gonna challenge that concept in
yeah,
cooking, because you really are not gonna be able. You know, it's like you will get a choice. You want some beef? You want, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's just gonna be interesting. I'm super excited. One of the things that Damon always says is that I'm a restaurant chef who catered, and so
Mm-hmm.
I never allowed myself to have any more thoughts about that because I had to do what I had to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
now this is the time where you get to have fun and
Yeah.
explore. And then Damon, his influence as far as the restaurant, he managed this, and he's coming up with all these creative concepts for everything, but he's also a mixologist. And so we're
Awesome. Okay. Come
slamming.
on, bar program.
We got a copper bar.
That's right.
And so he's about to come out. He does batch cocktails, and really excited about his program with Brown Liquor Cocktail Company is his brand. And so from that, we're coming together and collaborating on this food, and it's just I'm excited. I'm excited. It's gonna be.
Well, I mean, it actually does not seem that far off. I mean, think about all of the Red Fire, right? Think about the 50 best restaurants, right? Like Alinea, we all, everybody was, those restaurants with people paying a premium per guest are giving themselves over to the chef experience, right? And you sort of saying, like, this is the, you doing it on a scale that, can you talk, I mean, you could kind of far out from opening, but like, what kind of price point are you talking about?
Well, that's an interesting thing too. That's something we playing with, because again, you can do whatever you want to, right? But it's like you got to look at what's happening now in the economy. You got to look at, you know, it's now what's happening to everybody in the economy, but this kind of living and what we've been doing, Black folks been living like this for a minute, like having to make that dollar stretch, you know, that kind of thing. So we really are coming up with some interesting ways to approach how folks are eating, and will be able to dine with us, and trying to I don't want to say sliding scale because that sounds
I'm
like,
not too, you know.
but at the same time, one of the themes that I've consistently said inside of this is that I know who my customers are and have been, and this is a place for them now to come and dine together. And so what we want is this place where the millionaire and the homie can sit down and everybody have a good time. That's
Mm.
require some different level of pricing to be able for folks to be able to get what they can afford, what they want, and what they need all at the same time. So I'm new to this restaurant game. It's gonna be interesting to see how this all pans out. But I believe in it, and trying to find a way where we can make our money to pay these bills and it also be approachable is what we're working on as far as price point, so that it can be something where we want our community to be able to eat, you know. And I know this area where it is like it's a space where if you weren't mindful about that, then you would be onslaught, and folks that are on it would be in the front, and the folks that ain't would be in the back, and
Okay.
we trying to find a way to make sure that everybody feels welcome.
That's right.
Especially we feel welcome, and I think that that's really important. And I love that young voice of Damon that constantly says that the biggest thing that we have to make sure of is making sure that this is a place where Black people feel welcome and comfortable. And that's
Well,
something we take for granted.
that's a big deal, and it's also one that I don't know that like just a lot, oftentimes think about and or have the luxury, not luxury, but have the space to think about, right? Because I mean, even you talked about the process of getting the money for it and all that. Like when you start thinking about business plans, etc., you have to be able to. You're trying to stay essentially like your customer base is wide enough that an investor is going to make their money back. But starting from a space where you're saying like, I'm not limiting who can come. I'm just thinking about a recentering who is my focus, what sort of energy you curate it. And I think that becomes like really integral in terms of how you get people to want to come back and want to continue to support. Because kind of like we don't have a lot of places that are specifically built for our culture, that built to make us feel that sense of home, sense of family. And it's something that you get to create in catering. When you choose your customers and like people know they know your brand enough to know what you are going to be bringing to their event, but it's always and it's so specific. But we don't typically see in restaurants, and it's so interesting that he says. I hadn't heard that. Heard you say that before. That you're a restaurant chef who catered. Because it's a different mindset, but it's one that probably. I mean, all these chefs now, all the restaurant chefs I'm talking to, are all trying to figure out how to use best practices from catering now. To think about how to pivot. And so if you had thought about that little phrase is valuable before, there would have been more cross-industry conversation that would have had everybody with the best tools and maybe have reformed a little differently earlier.
Yeah. I really get frustrated with that. And that's going to be the biggest thing. I can't wait. And I'd love to have a conversation with you like 6 months after I open, because
Yep.
I know that you have the ability to be in catering and be in the restaurant world at the same time. And I'm trying to switch my mind, because restaurant chefs are always like, I'm the man, I'm the best. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you take that shit on the road and you let me know how that works out. Like, I feel like restaurant chefs they always get the acclaim, they always get the focus, and then catering chefs never get anything. But we are actually taking your restaurant experience to you and cleaning up, setting it up from beginning to end. And I don't know. I want to see the differences. I can't wait to see the differences, because I just don't think one is harder over the other. If anything, I think catering is harder, but I'm gonna see.
Well, also, there's also something in like the financial responsibility of catering, right? Like you don't have the margins that we talk about in restaurants and disproportionate margins for Black chefs is true and it's a thing, but a lot of it also is that the models just don't make plain like hospitality accounting sense. And so there's a thing about, I mean, the way in which you organize a business in catering is counting everything. Is sort of accountable for everything and accountable for everything on an event by event basis, but as a holistic business. And I guess I'm thinking about like what those just that the fact that you have so many tools in your toolbox is about to reframe how we think about restaurants.
I'm excited.
Well, and we just kind of we close to the end. Kristi, I love you so much, and I just people background girl cooks. Please just follow. She is. I mean, Kristi is just on the brink of something really important, and what she's doing, I think, is applicable for people in and out of food. If you're in the Seattle area, you can support what she's doing by following Background Girl Cook. She goes live here on Facebook and all of those spaces, constantly updating about what's new and what's happening. But just you are my sister, and I'm grateful for you in the world. But I think we should also all be looking at models like yours to think about possibilities. Because I mean, you really are on the cutting edge, and not because it's a moment, but because it's how you always operated.
Yeah. I just encourage us to like be more open, especially during this time. I really feel like spiritually you can have what you want. Now, that's a tricky slope, right? Because first you got to know what you want, right? And you got to be confident enough to ask for it. But I feel like this is really an energy that's happening, and then we're focused on this thing around the Blackness part. But I think it's really a spiritual movement where folks can really get in here and affect some kind of change. And even if that change is you and your family, and then you and your neighbor, you know what I'm saying? It's just these spaces where that's how we grow. That's
Mm.
how we learn. And if we can take that in these really, really small spaces, my girlfriend says specificity, you
That's
know,
right.
sometimes you can only think like 1 second outside of where you're at right now. But if you can open yourself up to that, that really is the key to be able to helping this thing grow. And
That's right.
it's to control how it grows. And that's the beauty part of it. It's scary,
Yeah.
but you know, it can yield so many great results. So I'm excited to see where it takes us.
Hey. Alrighty, but thank you so much for this. I'm so excited for you. And
You know, I know you get. I can't wait to hear more interviews with you, because usually you do like conferences and stuff. We don't get to see you on the camera.
yeah,
But I'm just, you know, I can talk about you for so long about the effects that you've had in our community. It's so profound to me. And I'm just so glad we have this connection. And I was thinking about, you gave me, I took the cookbook. Y'all don't know that Tressa she has a cookbook that she wrote a long time ago, and she needs to be selling these bad boys because there's a lot of richness. And I was flipping through that book when I got back, and I was like, this is so good. And so many people are going to be able to gain so much from what you have to offer. I'm excited about the projects you've had and what you're working on now, because you're a blessing to the world. And I love you.
I love you too. All right, so yeah, I'll talk to you soon. But thank y'all. All right.
Bye.
So let me see if Aretta is here. Black Food folks, real quick, we can let her jump on. If not, that was Kristi Brown. She is brilliant. That Brown Girl Cooks. You can follow her on all socials. Definitely on here on Instagram. That Brown Girl Cooks. And okay, we got Aretta right here. So some of these conversations are brought to y'all as a collaboration between Black Food folks and Afropunk. And yeah, it's been really important, this collaboration the last 9 weeks. But over on Black Food Folks, there are some amazing conversations that happen week to week as well, a couple every week. And today, the very brilliant Aretta Itar is right here, and she's about to jump over and have a dope conversation. So talk about that, Aretta.
Hi, yeah. So, Therese, it's so good to see you. Like
Hey,
it's been so long, but yeah, I'm gonna be talking to Chef Zoe Ajonio of Ghana's Kitchen. We're gonna have a really good conversation. I'm very excited to for the topics that we're gonna talk about. Um,
yeah.
there's like so many topics, so like I'm just trying to fit it all in an hour, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Awesome. So I'm gonna let you go and get over there. It's gonna be right at 1 o'clock, so we got like a minute. But thank you, and I'm glad to see your face again. And we'll talk soon. But
For sure.
yes, alrighty,
Alrighty, bye.
bye. All right, y'all. So thanks so much. Head over to Black Food Folks right now if you got a minute, and got some time. Zoe of Ghana's Kitchen is super dope. And Retta is a very brilliant young chef who has been hosting a lot of the chef-led conversations over on Black Food Folks. So check it out. And please, Kristi Brown, That Brown Girl Cooks, check her out. She's brilliant.